So we talked about our dry heat cooking methods, things like roasting. We talked about saute. We talked about broiling, grilling. Today, we're going to talk about pan frying. Pan frying, conductive or convective? It's in a pan, right? So there's heat from below. But there's a lot of oil in the pan. So as opposed to saute, which is direct conductive because there is as little oil in there as you possibly can use, and it's used mechanically. It's really meant to transfer the heat. That's a direct conductive fashion. Well, rather than saute with a real small amount of oil, when we start to fill the pan up halfway with oil, now the oil becomes the medium for the heat. So this is a convective cooking process. So the difference between pan frying and saute, which we just touched on, the amount of fat. Very simply, the amount of fat that you put in the pan, or the amount of oil. So our pan frying procedure, step 1, coat in crumb. Most often, the items that are pan fried are breaded. It's a 3-step breading procedure. The item gets dredged in flour, the flour sticks to the item, into egg, the egg sticks to the flour, into crumb, the crumb sticks to the egg. Always 3-step procedure. Second, oil in the pan, oil hot. This is a very important step in pan frying because if your oil is too hot, your crumb will burn before the item cooks in the middle. If your oil is too cool, the crumb absorbs all the oil as it slowly comes up to temperature, and you wind up with a very greasy, oily product. First way to tell whether the oil's fat, thermometer. Second way, take a little bit of the crumb, drop it in the oil. You'll see it start to bubble and chase around. You'll see that convection process. When you see the thing moving and bubbling around, you can assume that the oil's fat enough. The oil is hot enough. Step 1, coat in crumb. Step 2, oil hot. Step 3, the product. Don't overcrowd. Don't crowd. The oil needs to be around the item. If you put everything right next to each other, you're going to have raw where the two things are touching. So the oil needs to touch every part that is being cooked. Step 4. Just like saute, 75% one side, 25% the other if we can. We want to cook it as much as we can on one side, 75-25. We want to cook it as much as we can on one side because we can watch the changes in the item. Even though it's coated in crumb, you can see the coagulation of proteins. You can see it stiffen and shrink. How do we tell when our pan-fried item is done? With a thermometer. Thank you. That's always the answer to the question. Let's say that you put your pan-fried item in the hot oil. You see the coagulation of proteins. It stiffens a little bit. The crumb is getting brown. It's getting browner and browner. You turn it over. It's getting brown again. And now it's starting to get a little too brown for you, right? It's starting to get black. You put your thermometer in there. It's only 130 degrees. What do? Take it out, put it in a convective cooking process, a dry convective cooking process. That oil is overcooking the crumb. So, let's say you have a pork chop that's this thick. You got one of these Flintstones type pork chops you'd get at Ruth Chris. The fact that you put it in a pan with the oil up to here may not reach the center of that pork chop in time. So when we put the thermometer in it and you're like, wow, the crumb looks really good, it looks really crunchy and nice, but it's not up to temperature yet, it's time to change the cooking method. Put it in the oven, cook it in a convective process. So anytime, like we saw with grilling on Friday, you're applying that heat, okay, but now it's all brown, but it's not fully cooked. It's time to change from a direct process to an indirect process. Or in this case, from an indirect process to a dry indirect process to another dry indirect process, one with oil, one without. All right, questions about pan frying? Pretty straightforward. Today, we are going to make check my menu again. We're going to make Wiener Schnitzel. Wiener Schnitzel. Anybody know what that is? A hot dog?
Veal cutlet, thinly pounded out, and then breaded in breadcrumbs and pan fried.
Exactly.
Normally served with spatula.
Exactly. It's a veal cutlet, breaded veal cutlet. Yes. Wiener Schnitzel we're going to make today. So what we'll do is we'll take some veal cutlets, we'll pound them out flat. We've got a 3-step breading procedure. We'll bread them, we'll get some fat going on the stove. We'll pan fry them, just as I had said. One side they're going to be real thin, so they're going to cook very quickly. The other side, Wiener Schnitzel. We're going to do a pan fried pork chop. Pan fried pork chop. Again, breading procedure. Flour, seasoned flour, egg crumb in a pan, in the oil, 75% one side, 25% the other side. We will try some twice baked potatoes if we have any, since we've already done roasting. So we'll try and bake potatoes, scoop out the flesh on the inside, mash it with some things, put it back in, and roast them in the oven. We'll do some white and wild rice again. Always a good lesson to do rice, to cook rice. And I had planned on some sauteed mushrooms, but we'll see if we have any mushrooms in there. Our menu today. I don't think we have service next door today, but we will set up a nice buffet for ourselves like we did on Friday. That was a darn good meal on Friday, I'll tell you what. We did grilled flank steak and grilled shrimp and a whole bunch of really, really nice things. All right.